start with breaking news coming in. Israeli military says it has completed a series of overnight strikes in the heart of Tehran. Dozens of military targets in Iran were hit, including military industrial sites for missile production and the SPAN headquarters for research and development of the nuclear weapons project. It said that more than 60 Air Force fighter jets attacked the targets with precise intelligence guidance from the intelligence branch using approximately 120 munitions. Well, this is the latest that we're getting. Reiterating for our viewers once again, Israeli military says it has completed a series of overnight strikes in the heart of Tehran. Dozens of military targets in Iran were hit, including the military industrial sites for missile production and the SPAN headquarters for research and development of the nuclear weapons project. It is said that more than 60 Air Force fighter jets attacked the targets with precise intelligence guidance from the intelligence branch using approximately 120 munitions. We are now being joined by Peter Kusnik from Washington, D.C. He's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at American University. Thank you so much, Mr. Kusnik, for joining us on the broadcast.
Glad to be with you.
So now, while the primary goal of Operation Rising Lion has been to eliminate the existential threat that Iran's nuclear capability poses to Israel, Netanyahu has said that regime change could be a possible result of the operation, but it's not the main objective, and has categorically reiterated his claim that Israel will keep going on for as long as it takes. Now, it's pertinent to ask just how long can Israel realistically sustain its offensive against Iran at this point?
We can't know that for certain because we don't know how many missiles Iran actually has. At the beginning of the war, the estimate was they had between 2,000 and 3,000 missiles that could strike Israel. We know they've shot off at least 300 or 400 already. Israel has destroyed some of their launchers and has destroyed some of the missiles, but we don't know how many. And Israel has a finite amount of interceptors. So if Iran has more missiles than Israel has interceptors, this war could go on for quite some time. The war between Iran and Iraq in the 1980s went on for almost a decade. So even though the West was supporting Iraq against Iran throughout most of that war, the Iranians held out, continued fighting, continued resisting, lost hundreds of thousands of men in the process, but did not want to quit. So Iran has staying power. Iran is a nation of 92 million people. It's a proud nation. It's a well-armed nation and a capable nation that has some important allies. So it's not clear that this is going to be an easy victory for Israel, although Israel certainly has the upper hand because they've got air superiority and they're striking Iran with impunity.
Right, Mr. Kusnik, and having said that, now we know that as Trump is still weighing on whether to overtly join the conflict or not, America's closest ally, Britain, is almost certain to be affected in more ways than one by the trajectory that the conflict could take in West Asia going forward. Now, if Trump does decide to commit U.S. forces to help Israel eliminate Iran's nuclear program, in what capacity could the UK get involved?
The UK? Well, the UK has been really creating trouble in the Middle East for more than a century now. So the UK could be involved in a disruptive way in the region. You have to remember that the Sykes-Picot Treaty back a long time ago during World War I really divided up the region in a way that made many of these wars there and conflicts almost inevitable. Then the Balfour Declaration. So the British have always played a very destabilizing, destructive role in the region. The British have military assets. Even though the British public does not want Britain to get involved, the American public does not want the United States to get involved. Even a majority of Republicans don't want the United States to get involved. So there's a lot that they can do, but they will probably not get directly involved unless the United States does.
Right. Mr. Kuznik, and I'd like to get your assessment on another pressing matter now that a New York Times report has cited U.S. intelligence officials warning that Tehran may move towards building a nuclear bomb if Washington targets its uranium enrichment facilities or if Israel assassinates Iran's supreme leader. So now with Iran also threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the conflict seems to be treading on thin ice. An Operation Rising Lion may end up provoking exactly the fallout that it had probably hoped to prevent. What direction are we heading in from here?
There was no need to start this war in the first place. U.S. intelligence was saying that Iran does not have a nuclear program. U.S. intelligence says that Iran gave up its nuclear program back in 2003 and has never restarted it. Netanyahu said Iran posed an existential threat. They were days away from getting a nuclear weapon. Netanyahu's been saying one version of this or another since 1992. So we've seen these lies. We saw how the United States got lied into the Iraq War in 2003. We saw how the United States got lied into the Vietnam War. Now the United States is on the verge of getting lied into another war. So this is a very, very dangerous, precarious situation that could create just what they say they're trying to avoid. It's very likely that the Iranians are going to decide, they're going to look at what happened in 2003 with North Korea and Iraq. North Korea said the one mistake that the Iraqis made was not to have nuclear weapons. That if they had nuclear weapons, the United States could never have invaded. And we look at that, and North Korea has managed to survive because it has nuclear weapons. So it would be logical, although I think it would be disastrous, for the Iranian leadership to rush as fast as it can for a nuclear bomb. And even if there's regime change, even if the Ayatollahs are overthrown, there's no guarantee that whoever replaces them won't even be more hardliners and more insistent on developing a bomb. Because the lesson they're going to draw was that they didn't have what was necessary to preempt the Israelis and maybe the United States from coming in. So there's a real possibility that Iran could decide to go for a bomb, or that they may be already. There's other dangers here. Trump now says he might wait for 2 weeks. Well, you can't trust anything Trump says because he lies all the time, and he might be trying to lull the Iranians back into not being as vigilant as they should be. But there's other ways that the U.S. could get involved. Trump has said if our U.S. assets in the region get attacked, the United States will come in. I'm worried about Mossad, Israeli intelligence, pulling a false flag operation and striking an American facility in the region and blaming it on the Iranians. That's something very much within Israel's capability. So there's a lot of ways that this could spiral out of control. And there's also, logically, the possibility that Israel will say, Iran poses such an existential threat, and we don't have the weapons to destroy the Fordo facility, so we'll be forced to use our tactical nuclear weapons to destroy Fordo, because otherwise it's an existential threat to Israel. I haven't seen the Israelis say that. I have no information to support that, but it seems logical that the way the Israelis are posing this, that is a possibility. This whole thing could turn into even a much more disastrous regional war, and possibly even a world war. That has to be stopped. It has to be stopped as quickly as possible, which should be tomorrow.
Right, Mr. Kuznik, and while further escalation does remain a possibility on the table, meanwhile, we know the leaders of France, Germany and Britain will be meeting the Iranian foreign minister. And this is a meeting being coordinated by the United States, which could possibly be a window for President Trump to continue to push for some form of agreement to come out of Iran. Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't think President Trump was serious about getting a nuclear deal with Iran. You have to remember that it was Trump who blew up the original Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, in 2018. Then he said, when he came to office again, that he wants a nuclear deal. However, his bargaining terms were such that Iran could never accept it, and he knew that. by insisting that Iran give up entirely its ability to enrich uranium, which it was guaranteed as a signatory to the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty. All the non-signatories of the NPT are allowed to have a domestic enrichment program. But now Trump is saying that Iran should give it up, and Iran could never have agreed to that. Trump knew that. You also saw what the G7 said. They said that Israel has the right to self-defense and that Iran is the instigator in this situation. Merz said that Israel is doing all of our dirty work by attacking Iran. Trump said that it's excellent what Israel is doing. So I don't think that these people are honest brokers in this situation. I think we need to get others to intervene. India should be a mediator. Russia, China, these could be mediators who could be trusted. I don't trust France, Germany, United States to pull this off. The Brits, no. I'm afraid that it's not going to come to any solution that the Iranians can accept.
Right, Mr. Kasnik, some very valid points there, but of course we'll have to wait and see how the situation develops in West Asia. But for now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you for having me.